Hello, and welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This podcast is where we dive into all things mindset, where we truly believe that when we take a moment to look at our mindset, it allows us more power in our life. And I decided to do something this first season that's just a little bit bold, and that has my heart pounding a little bit every single time I think about it. And that is to read from my journal that I kept when I was a 15-year-old. I got pregnant at a very young age. I lost my baby girl. And yes, I'm totally nervous because I'm not pre-reading these entries. I am reading them live with you. So what we're about to get into, I don't really even know. But after we read the entry, I'm breaking apart backstory of things that were happening, things that were going on. And I'm also just talking you through the way that my mindset was as we went through this crazy journey, and the things that helped me and that molded me, the way that my mindset was, that brought me breakthroughs, that brought me peace with things that I could otherwise carry with me my whole life. So I want to dive into this next entry, which happened on March 16th, 1994, a day later from the previous entry that I read to you on our first episode. We went to the doctor tonight. He said everything's all right, but nothing's happening. We still have 8 days. I guess Jesse's not sleeping with me tonight again. We were laying in bed. I was rubbing his back, and my mom and sister called at 11 o'clock, and we talked for 15 minutes. During that time, Jesse got up and went into the other room. Why can't this man just relax? Why do I feel that everything I do for him or anything else is wrong? That's the way he makes me feel. Just barely today, he asked me, why can't you do anything by yourself? What am I supposed to say? Maybe if he could just know or feel how it makes me feel, he would think twice. Or like anything I try to say, I feel like he doesn't even try to understand. Because after anything I say, he says, Misha, you don't make any sense. Why doesn't he go find someone he understands so he doesn't have to lose his temper and yell so much at me? I try to make him happy and please him. What am I doing wrong? Wow. I really was not expecting this. And wow, there is so much to unpack in this tiny little entry. Wow, right? Really makes you think about the way that we speak to each other and about the spin that we have on the way other people are speaking to us. So let's break some of these things apart. Let's break apart first the way that he was speaking to me. So first of all, I don't really remember the line, I guess he's not sleeping with me again tonight. I'm not resonating with that this early in the story. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. And then, so I don't know, I guess that was happening quite a bit at that point already. And I want to break down the way that he talked to me first, and then we'll address my victimhood, okay, in just a little bit. First thing to know is that the way that other people treat you is always a reflection of themselves, how they're feeling, what's going on for them, what's going on inside of them. So when someone else does something that's hurtful to you, mean or spiteful, especially out of the blue, out of nowhere, you know, and even if it does have merit, the point is when somebody does something hurtful and it just kind of gets to you, there's something that you do need to remind yourself. You have to remind yourself that it says more about them than it does about you, right? Like the way that we talked about it being a reflection of themselves. It says more about where they're at and how they're experiencing life. So yeah, maybe they're going through something hard, but it doesn't really give them an excuse to treat you in a bad way, right? So if we can allow ourselves to look at it objectively, to figure out what they're saying, you know, like give merit to what they're saying and say, is it true? But there's a difference between someone lovingly helping you to a certain point in your life to help you find improvement and someone that's just kind of using you as a punching bag, right? To maybe express their own emotions or their own sadness to try to get those things out. So our words have incredible power. And I do remember, I mean, this brings up for me, you know, when he said, why can't you do anything for yourself? I'm 14 years old. No, 15. Holy cow. I'm 15 years old trying to navigate having a baby. Okay. Let's just digest that one for a minute. I'm sure there was a lot of things I was doing by myself. But again, reflecting, right? Reflecting how they feel inside instead of helping someone grow, they're tearing someone down. I remember Jesse kind of having this joking way of saying stuff like, dude, you're so dumb, you know, and really kind of joking. But I remember learning later how that really could carry with me and how much our words have power. I'm now a firm believer that we shouldn't allow anyone to talk to you in ways that break you down. Have you ever seen, there's a beautiful image of a little boy, and he has, it's beautiful and disturbing at the same time. Okay. So it's this beautiful image of this boy and his face, and it just kind of is like from the chest up, but he's crying. He's really emotional, and he has what looks like this hand kind of choking him around his neck, but the hand isn't a normal hand. It's just made up of all of these different words, right? Like hurtful, mean words, and the boy's crying. And I don't know, that has been an image for me forever, just to remind myself to not say anything like mean or you know, destructive to my kids. And I think that on the contrary, there's an image that I love of a woman who is kind of, it's an older like idea or figure where she's kind of sitting in a Victorian dress, and she has these angel wings floating out of her mouth. And so you contrast the two images, right? And our words really do have power, and people in your immediate circle should lift you. The things we say to our people are guideposts for what they believe about themselves. And I think if anyone is speaking to you in a manner that's hurtful or, you know, breaks you down, you have to also remember to ask yourself the things, is that true? And if it's not true, you have to dismiss what they're saying. So hopefully you have enough power in your life to confront the situation or remove yourself from the situation entirely, depending on, you know, the relationship. But reminding yourself that that is not true is one of the most important things to continue to build yourself to go forward. There's a book that's called The Message from Water by, I'm going to say his name wrong probably, Masaru Emoto. And this guy did all of this research about vibrational energy that comes from words, music, thoughts, ideas, and how it affects the molecular structure of water. And he would freeze droplets of water, and then he would put them under a microscope and zoom in. And when he zoomed in, the molecules, like from the beautiful things that were said or played on music or thoughts or whatever, were stunning. I mean, they looked like the most beautiful snowflakes in tons of different shapes. And then he also zoomed in and froze droplets of water that were surrounded with heavy metal music or negative words, right? So the positive words were like thank you and love and appreciation, and the negative ones that the water was, labeled was you make me sick and I'll kill you. And the contrast between the two molecular structures was beauty or chaos. When you zoomed in on the other ones that had that negative vibrational energy, they just looked like chaos. They weren't gathered, they weren't organized. That's a really neat experiment to kind of dive into and go look at the pictures and the images, but you can imagine them in your brain. And the power that we have on water, because, he also tested water from sources that were like dirty, contaminated water sources and springs and beautiful, clear sources of water, and saw the same correlation between the beautiful structure, the snowflake structure, into chaos. And there's a little lesson from the Karate Kid for me that says we can be trained and not even realize it, right? The wax on, wax off. He was being trained and he didn't realize it. So I think it's important to take a look at our life, whether it's what we're saying to the people around us or what they're saying to us, and to ask, what are we being trained? If the words that we're speaking or the words that we're being told come true, what will we be in our future? Because our words have that much power. And now I want to focus a little bit on my side of this entry. Okay, my side of really being a victim. Why do I feel that everything I do for him or anything else is wrong? Okay. I mean, that's it's a valid concern, but the entire message that I'm writing here to me feels like I'm being a victim, right? Like, well, what am I supposed to say? And he doesn't even understand. What if he felt like I felt? What if he could just feel what I feel? What if, it's hard because these are valid thoughts. These are valid things. But I think that I'm also training myself in this particular entry into being a victim, maybe being more committed to how I felt and how sad I felt than committed to do the work and confront him and talk to him and figure out what we wanted for our life and our future, right? And again, like I wouldn't have known that going back in time. That was stuff that I had to kind of go through the school of hard knocks to get to a point where I could recognize that. But it's important for us to understand that our brain and our body can become addicted to negative feelings. So the more that we declare ourselves a victim, or the more that we declare ourselves and paint ourselves into these corners of like, well, what am I doing wrong? And what am I, those kinds of things, we're painting ourselves into feeling these feelings and training ourselves to be a victim, to continually sign up to be that person. And we have to be committed to climbing out of that pit and confront the truth in front of us and saying, this is not actually how I want to feel. And the more that you're committed to doing that, the more that you're committed to confronting what you're painting yourself into that corner over, then the faster and faster you'll notice it, and the less likely you will be to fall into the pits of whatever you're painting yourself into in that corner. To climb out of the pit, there are some concrete things that you can do to help you find yourself on the other side. You can practice self-compassion. You can be kind to yourself. You can talk with friends or figure out your relationships and group memberships that do make you feel good, that make you feel like you belong. You can surround yourself with the right reminders that counteract the feelings. Okay, the negative feeling, whatever you're painting yourself into the corner over. Surround yourself with pictures, notes, memories, anything that can remind you or help counteract those feelings. You can make a list of your positive attributes, okay, whatever it is that you have proof of that counters the tendency in your head to think of yourself in a negative way. So what do you have proof of are, maybe some things in your life that you can write down that are true, that say, like for me in that circumstance, Misha, you're not a victim because, right? I do amazing, like some of the phrases that he said, what did he say? Why can't you do anything by yourself? I could go write all of the things that I do by myself if I was falling into a pit of believing that, right? And becoming that victim. That's how you lift yourself back out. You have to fill up your tank. That reminds me of a story of this summer. My husband and I, our family was traveling, but I say my husband and I because we were the only ones awake in the car. And it was just past midnight. And we were exhausted, right? Kind of trying to hold our eyes open with toothpicks. And we were pulling into Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We missed our exit and we backtracked 6 miles on the freeway. And then after getting off that exit, we kind of drove along a lake, kind of on a windy road. And I looked at Jake and was like, oh my gosh. Our gas tank, we don't have very much gas left. And we had to make a choice. We had 17 miles of gas left. And the resort that we were going to was 6 miles away from that point. And from our maps, we could see, the reason we pulled over is because we could kind of tell that we were, not in Kansas anymore, right? We were driving away from the city. And so we pulled over and looked at our map and could see that there was no gas stations between us and the resort. And it was at that point we just knew we wouldn't make it if we didn't leave right now and go back to where we had just come from and fill up our tank so that we had enough to get where we wanted to go the next day. We had to do what we didn't want to do, right? We were tired, we were exhausted. But we had to go fill up our tank. So I think about that as that applies to what we're talking about right here. We're talking about building ourselves back up. Loving ourselves. Surrounding ourselves with proof. With reminders and proof. Okay, statements and feelings. Of things that will build us back up and help us climb out of the pit or the corner that we've painted ourselves into. I think sometimes we find ourselves in places where we can feel so broken that we don't want to even put the energy into doing that, right? To where we can't even get to a place where we can talk ourselves into saying something nice about ourselves. Well, let me just reassure you that if you find yourself there, and you actually know that you're there, that's actually still a really great step. Because just like my husband and I didn't want to go fill up our tank late at night, there's still things that you can do to at least try to lead yourself to a place where you could say nice things about yourself, okay? So you might expose yourself to a different voice. You got to expose yourself to a higher vibration, something that is kind to you. I like to say it like this. If you find yourself in a bad neighborhood upstairs, then you actually have to physically remove yourself and go to a new neighborhood. So there's another story about my husband and I traveling. Okay, when we went to New York, this was 20 years ago-ish. My husband and I, we were young and married, and we took a little vacation. It was actually a trip to celebrate my college graduation. And in the past, when I had traveled, I had learned how to ask the locals, where do you eat? Like, dove tu mangiare, right? When I went to Italy, with the emphasis on the you. No, where do you eat? Because we didn't want to get caught in like tourist traps, right? We wanted to know what the true culture was. And every single time you just ask someone, they usually give you a blanket answer until you ask them a second time and they give you, okay, here's where you're going to get the real experience. So my husband and I were in a cab. We were, venturing from the airport to our hotel. And we asked the cab driver where he liked to shop. We were thinking that he would be able to tell us of a market, a local market that maybe only New Yorkers knew about or something like that. And we jotted down what he said to us. We said, no, this is the very best, place where you're going to get the most amazing deals, and it's the great stuff. And so we took note, knowing that we'll go back there during our stay. During our stay, we'll go to this place where our cab driver recommended. And the shopping day came, and we arrived at the location where we got off the subway. And the moment we stepped off the subway, we were completely, sticking out like a sore thumb. Now, at the time, I was dancing on the ASU hip hop team, and I knew how to dress for my hip hop class. But I'm telling you, when I stepped off of this train, like, we couldn't have looked more like straight out of Old Navy. Okay. And guess where we were? We were in Harlem. We had no idea. Of course, this was Harlem 20 years ago. It's changed now. But we didn't know any better, and we really stuck out. There was a feeling of, I knew I was out of place. I knew I didn't look the part. I knew a lot of eyes were on me. And to top it off, we also had on these crazy, ridiculous backpacks. Okay, big enough to fit our rollerblades, because our plan was to, after we were done shopping, to rollerblade down through Central Park. It's a great plan, with the exception of getting off of that train and feeling completely out of place. Like, kind of feeling scared, right? Because I really didn't fit in. And my husband and I whispered a plan to each other. And the main part of that plan was, do not pull out that map. Don't let them know how out of sorts we are. And we walked across this city block so that we could get down into the subway and venture back the other direction. And to try to do it as quickly as possible without looking like we were in a rush, right? We were out of place in that neighborhood. Sometimes we're out of place in our minds and upstairs. When we find ourselves out of place in our own mind, we have to get on a subway. We have to go to a different location. We have to get off the next stop and get out of those doors and breathe with a sigh of relief that we're in a different environment. And then continue to enjoy our day and rollerblade down through Central Park, right? So sometimes when you're not in a good place upstairs, especially if you're not even in a place where you can build yourself up and fill up your tank and all of that stuff, you got to expose yourself to something else. You can't leave it up to yourself to stay where you're at. You have to physically move and expose yourself to different things, different voices, different music or media, whatever it is. Maybe you have really great voices in your life, motivational, maybe a friend, maybe whatever it is. You got to recognize that you're there, because that's really, really good. And then pick up and go somewhere. Leave. Right? Metaphorically. And get yourself into a different neighborhood. I am here to tell you, you can do it. You can do it every dang day, because sometimes that's what it takes. So now, coming full circle and looking back at the entire episode and looking back at what we started with the way that people, the way that they treat you being a reflection of who they are. It's interesting how we treat ourselves being a reflection of who we are, right? And wherever you're at on that spectrum is okay. Just remember that, just like our last episode, who you're becoming is more important than who you've been. You can build yourself up. You can use positive self-talk, and you can say nice things to yourself. You can fill up your gas tank, and you can go to a different neighborhood if you find yourself in a bad one. You have power. And when you take time for a mindset check, you find that you have more power than you think you do. See that? And because our stories help others, I wanted to ask you if you'll share yours. So please, if you have any insights, breakthroughs, or anything that helped you move through your day because of something that you hear on this podcast, then I would love it if you would share. I think our whole community would love it if you will share. Last week, one of our listeners named Rachel shared that she had an awareness of her own life as I shared the story of the girl at the pool and how my mindset allowed me the freedom of not hiding my truth. For years, Rachel experienced wild success in the business world, but because of her desire to be a mom and the guilt and shame she built around what she was not doing, she could not enjoy the success the way that she could have if she would have allowed herself that freedom. The kind of freedom that exists only because of our mindset. She wrote, "I let my mindset and own expectations rob me of the lion's share of joy and excitement I should have allowed myself to experience and celebrate through the launch and growth of a successful business. Looking back, I was still a great mom, and I battled to make my kids a priority and not forget them along the way. But it wasn't exactly the life I had planned for myself. So I lamented, and I was a bit bitter instead of grateful and present in the process. I'm learning that I have to be more flexible and not allow expectations or preconceived ideas ruin the happiness and success that I experience now. Happiness is not a destination. It is a mode of traveling. I'm working to just shift my mindset when things don't go exactly how I planned or expected." Rachel, thank you so much for sharing the raw and realness of your life with us. It is so beautiful to hear your own mindset breakthroughs. If you have some thoughts or an experience that you would like to share with our community because you think it will help someone else have a breakthrough in their mindset, then please send your thoughts in an email to hello@myfriendmisha.com, or you can DM me on Instagram, and that's at myfriendmisha, MESHA, myfriendmisha, and we'll take a minute in our upcoming podcasts to share your story with our other listeners. Also, this podcast can grow with your help. If you think this information or anything that we're going to get to in the future is helpful, then please share it with someone. And then go and leave us a review. And don't forget to subscribe so you can continue to get the mindset and encouragement that can help you get through your day. And one more thing, if you want to support this podcast in moving forward, and you're on Amazon anyway, buying, I don't know, everything in your life, from books to clothing to toilet paper, hey, if you could just do it through my link, then I'll get a kickback. And that would be a way that could help the podcast move forward. So when you shop, instead of typing in Amazon.com, it's as easy and as simple as typing amazon.com/shop/my-friend-Misha. That would be a huge thanks from me. And one more thank you. Thank you for letting me walk through a small part of your journey with you today. Remember that what happens in life is not what matters. What matters is what you think about what happens. Until next time, my friend.